She offered to pay without blinking, never realizing the man before her was one of the wealthiest and most powerful figures in the city. Drenched and forgotten, he looked like nothing more than a soaked stranger. By the time the laughter started, he had already begun to turn away. And then Jasmine Hale stepped forward. Not with a speech, not with pride, but with one small act that silenced the noise and would unknowingly open the door to a future she had never imagined. The North Bridge Cafe clattered with morning noise. Chairs scraped across tile floors, steam hissed from the espresso machine, and spoons chimed gently against porcelain mugs. Outside, the city of Halston blurred behind streaks of rain. It was the kind of gray day no one paid attention to, until the door opened. A gust of cold air swept in. An older man stepped through, drenched, shoulders hunched, coat sagging with water. His shoes left dark marks behind him. His hair, streaked with gray, clung to his forehead. He looked around the cafe as if unsure he belonged in it. He walked toward the counter, hands buried in the pockets of his soaked coat. The barista, a boy named Max, didn't lift his eyes. "What'll it be?" "Just black coffee, please," the man said, voice rough and tired. "That'll be $2.25, Max replied. The man checked his pockets. Left, right, inside, again. His hands moved faster, then slower, and then they stopped. He looked up, shame darkening his expression. I think I left my wallet. If it's all right, may I just sit here for a moment until the rain lets up?" Max scoffed, loud, unapologetic. "This isn't a public shelter, old man. No money, no seat." Voices from nearby tables began to rise. A woman with glossy lipstick chuckled behind her menu. "Who just walks in like that?" "He probably just wants a warm corner to nap in," someone else said. Another voice whispered, "This city's really slipping. People like him used to stay outside." The man backed away, eyes down, shoulders curling in. He didn't speak. He just stood there, like someone trying not to exist. But Jasmine had heard everything. She was only 2 minutes into her shift, still holding a tray of empty mugs, red apron on, auburn hair pulled back with a fraying elastic band. She paused, then walked to the register. Wordlessly, she reached into her apron pocket. She pulled out a folded, worn $5 bill and placed it on the counter. "That's enough," she said. Max blinked. "Jasmine, you don't need to—" "I know," she replied louder now. "I'm doing it because I've been that person before." Someone at a nearby table laughed under their breath. "She thinks he's some undercover CEO." She turned to face them. Her voice didn't shake. "Kindness isn't a game, and it's not weakness." The room fell still. She looked back at the man, who hadn't moved. "Please," she said softly, "take a seat. I'll bring it to you." He met her gaze, and there, beneath the tired eyes, was something she hadn't expected. Tears. He nodded once, then walked slowly to the corner table by the fogged-up window. Jasmine brewed the coffee herself. No one stopped her. She brought it to him, set it down with care, offered a small, gentle smile. He nodded again, no words. Outside, the rain kept falling, but inside, something else had changed. The warmth in the cafe no longer came from the espresso machine. It came from a girl who remembered what it felt like to have nothing and gave something anyway. The man disappeared into the rain, but the silence he left behind became a storm in Jasmine's life. The whispers started the next day. Soft, cruel things, spoken behind napkins and tilted coffee mugs. She thinks she's a saint now. She probably thought he was some undercover king. Some customers chuckled. Others glanced away. No one said thank you. No one stood beside her. 4 days passed and the world pretended nothing had happened. Except Jasmine felt everything. The way Jonah and Marcy, the co-workers who once laughed with her, now paused every time she walked in. The way Max, the barista, avoided eye contact. And the worst of all, the silence from her manager, Greg. Until he finally called her in. "Close the door," he said. The office smelled like burned coffee and bleach. The air was stale. Jasmine obeyed. Greg crossed his arms, his tone cut deep. "What you did was reckless." "I paid for it myself," she said, her voice calm. "That's not the point," he snapped. "You made this cafe look weak, like we hand out freebies to anyone who plays the part." "I didn't do it for show." He leaned forward, voice sharp. "You embarrassed your coworkers, you embarrassed this business, and you embarrassed yourself." She said nothing. Her face was stone, but her heart trembled. "I know your type," he added. "Girls who think kindness makes them special." A long silence. Jasmine didn't blink. "Go," he finally spat, "and remember your place." She walked out, past Jonah and Marcy by the sink. Marcy muttered, "Hard to play noble when your fridge is probably empty." Jonah chuckled. "Bet she thought the guy was some lonely billionaire." Jasmine didn't flinch. She grabbed her coat, clocked out, and stepped into the drizzle. The city felt crueler that night. The sidewalks were slick. Her feet ached. Her only subway token felt heavy in her pocket, as if it even didn't want to be spent. When she got home, the apartment was cold and dim. Lena, her younger sister, lay curled under a frayed blanket, too weak to sit up. "Hey," she whispered, brushing a damp strand of hair from her sister's face. "You're soaked," Lena murmured. "Just the weather," she said, forcing a smile. I reheated leftover soup, added the last pinch of salt, and fed her like it was the most natural thing in the world, like she wasn't falling apart inside. After Lena drifted off, Jasmine sat alone by the window. The city outside looked blurred, distant. Her own reflection stared back. Tired eyes, pale skin, cracked lips, but a strength beneath it all that would not go out. She thought of her mother, gone now. The day she collapsed in a crowded market, people stepped around her like she was trash. Except one woman. Old, poor, wrapped in a tattered shawl. That woman knelt beside them and stayed until help came. She never gave her name, but she gave Jasmine a lifetime lesson. That's why when she saw that man, soaked, ashamed, shrinking away from laughter, Jasmine stepped forward. Not because she expected to be noticed, not because she had something to give, but because she refused to be one more person who turned away. She whispered into the cold apartment air, "I'd rather be hated for showing compassion than praised for doing nothing." But what Jasmine did not know was that across the city, inside a penthouse made of glass and silence, the man she helped was reviewing a file. Her file. Hail, Jasmine, age 28. Occupation, waitress. Legal guardian, Lena Hale, age 14. High school graduate. Struggling, invisible to most. He stared at the black and white photo clipped to the folder. Jasmine standing at the cafe door in the rain, holding her tray like a shield. She didn't hesitate, Victor said aloud. His assistant stood nearby, quiet as a shadow. "Shall we proceed, sir?" the assistant asked. Victor's voice was calm, measured, unshakable. Yes, he said. Let's see what she does when truth replaces poverty. When the test is no longer survival, but character.
4 days had passed since Jasmine had stood up for a soaked stranger in the cafe. And yet the shame others tried to place on her still clung to her like damp clothes. No one had thanked her. No one had defended her. No one had dared to say it out loud, but they all acted like kindness was a crime. Until a man walked through the front door, and everything changed again. That morning, the rain had stopped, but the clouds lingered low. The Northbridge Cafe was wrapped in a soft gray hush. The usual clatter of cups felt distant. The conversations, hollow. Jasmine moved from table to table with a tired rhythm, wiping, clearing, serving, offering smiles that no longer reached her eyes. Her shift dragged like it was punishing her for having a heart. Not one person looked at her the same since that day. And just when she thought it would be another hour of swallowing silence, the bell above the door rang. She barely looked up until the room shifted. Chatter died mid-sentence. A fork clattered to the floor, and no one moved to pick it up. Someone had shifted the gravity of the entire space. Jasmine turned and froze. It was him, but not the man who'd been soaked and trembling. This man stood tall, composed. A tailored charcoal gray suit hugged his frame. A silk scarf lay perfectly draped across his shoulders. A watch shimmered on his wrist. His presence was quiet but commanding. He looked like he belonged in boardrooms, not diners. But Jasmine didn't see the suit. She saw the eyes. Those same eyes from that rainy morning. Sad, searching, seeing. He didn't speak, didn't order, didn't look around. He simply walked, straight to the same corner table where shame had once soaked the floorboards, and sat down. Jasmine's breath caught. Her legs felt like stone. She grabbed a menu to steady herself and approached, heart thudding louder with each step. "Good morning," she said softly. He looked up, calm and steady. "I am not here to eat." "Then why?" He paused, then said slowly, "I only came to ask you one question." Jasmine's throat tightened. He leaned forward. "Why did you help me?" Every sound in the cafe dissolved into stillness. No one breathed. Jasmine sank into the seat across from him. Her menu slipped from her hand. She did not think. She spoke from somewhere deeper. "Because I've known what it feels like to be invisible. Because I've needed help and been ignored. And because no one deserves to be laughed at when they're already carrying the weight of the world." He stared at her, not in judgment, not in awe, but with something rare. Recognition. "I've been wealthy for most of my life, but it's astonishing how many people treat you like you're nothing the moment they think you are." Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. "May I ask your full name again?" he said quietly. "Jasmine Hale." He repeated it under his breath like it mattered. "Thank you, Jasmine." She looked down, unsure what to say next, unsure if this was real. Then he reached into his coat and slid something across the table. An envelope. Her name was written in bold black ink. No address, no logo, just Jasmine Hale. The paper was thick, weighty, serious. Her fingers hesitated above it. "What is this?" she whispered. "A real thank you, and, possibly, a new beginning." Before she could respond, he stood. "I won't pressure you," he said, voice gentler than before. "But if curiosity leads you, open it. And if courage moves you, come find me." Then he walked out. No business card, no last name, no promise. Just silence. And a choice. Jasmine sat alone, staring at the envelope as if it might burn through the table. What was inside could be nothing. Or everything. All she knew was that this, whatever this was no longer just about coffee. It was about truth, about being seen, and about a moment that might change her future and unlock something far more valuable than money ever could. Part 4. She stared at the envelope like it might detonate. All night it sat untouched on her kitchen table. The cream paper gleamed under the flickering light, her name written on it like it knew something she didn't. Jasmine had been burned before, by strangers who offered promises and vanished, by jobs that promised hope and left her with nothing but late bills and lost sleep. But something about the way he had looked at her, that silence, that unspoken thank you, it stayed. Only after her sister Lena had fallen asleep, wrapped in her threadbare blanket, did Jasmine finally approach the envelope. Her hands trembled. She broke the seal. Inside was a single elegant ivory card. No logos, no signature. Just one line of text. Jasmine Hale, guest of Victor Eldridge. Astorn Hotel, Friday, private lounge, 2 p.m. Her breath caught. Victor Eldridge. She had heard the name in passing, never thinking it belonged to a real person. A billionaire. A mystery. The kind of man whispered about in financial circles and magazine covers, but never seen in corner cafes, soaked in rain, humiliated by a barista. But he had been there. She had served him coffee. And now he was inviting her into his world. She almost didn't go. For 2 nights, she barely slept. Her nerves were raw, her thoughts loud. What if it was a trap? What if it was a joke? What if she made a fool of herself? But there was one louder voice inside her. A voice shaped by pain and kindness and every quiet choice she had ever made. And that voice said, "Go." So on Friday, Jasmine wore her best blouse, borrowed heels from her neighbor, pinned her curls back with a chipped clip, and packed every fear she had into her coat pocket. At the Astorn Hotel lobby was polished marble and chandelier light. It didn't blink when she walked in. She didn't belong there, but no one said so. She was led up, 21 floors above her ordinary life, into a private lounge of deep leather chairs, hushed jazz, and windows that watched over the entire city. And then the door opened. Victor Eldridge walked in. No suit, just a dark sweater, and the same quiet eyes. "Thank you for coming," he said gently. Jasmine sat across from him, unsure whether to speak or breathe. He began, "I owe you the truth. That morning, I wasn't lost. I wasn't broke." He paused. Not for drama, but for something heavier. "I've spent years hidden behind power. watching the world treat me like I was everything or nothing, depending on what they thought I could give them. He looked at her then, right into her. And you gave without knowing, without needing. I didn't do it for recognition, Jasmine said, her voice soft but sure. He replied, I know. That's exactly why it meant something. He stood and walked to the window, folding his hands behind his back. I'm not offering you a job, or money, or some polished escape. He turned slowly. I just want to ask, would you sit with me again? No masks, no titles, just you and me. Jasmine stared at him, not at the man who built towers, at the one who had once sat, drenched, ashamed and forgotten in her cafe. And slowly, she smiled.
I think this time, she said, you can buy the coffee. Victor laughed, a warm, disarming sound. Jasmine did too. And just like that, something shifted. It wasn't a fairy tale. There was no carriage waiting, no golden staircase. Just two people, both carrying scars, choosing to see each other. Clearly, honestly, without shields. And in that moment, as the light spilled through the tall windows, Jasmine understood. She hadn't stepped into wealth, she had stepped into truth. And that kind of rare human connection was worth more than anything money could ever buy. Enjoyed the story? Subscribe to Mystery Thrill. We share emotional, suspenseful stories with powerful life lessons that move hearts. Real people, real choices, real change. Stay with Mystery Thrill, where every story leaves you thinking.